Hey book nerds, I'm Travis, and this is Travis Reads Books. I was recently tagged by JB Taylor to participate in this fun tag which was created by Joe Compton of GoIndieNow. I'll link both those channels in the description. This tag is designed to honor the Alice in Chains album Facelift. And what Joe has done is he's gone through the track list and come up with questions, each one inspired by one of the tracks of Facelift. So here we go. Track 1, We Die Young. Name an artist you love that died way too young. For me, it's Kurt Cobain. A cliché choice, I know, but his death deeply affected me. I hadn't even known who he was up until shortly before his death. A girl I was dating at the time was absolutely obsessed with him, and for Christmas she bought me the Bleach album. It took over my soul. When I wasn't listening to it, I would often carry it around in my hand just to have it with me. Yes, in those days we had physical media you could carry around, called CDs. Nirvana was singing about things that no one I had ever listened to had sung about, even if there were things on that album that I wouldn't understand for many years. So when Kurt Cobain killed himself, I felt it. He had been my voice, and he was gone. I'd never actually known anyone who had died at that point in my life, so it was probably the most acute sense of loss I'd ever felt. Track 2, Man in the Box. Name a series that trapped you from the moment you started reading or watching it. Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Also a cliché choice. But I read that entire book in one sitting, and I couldn't wait to get into the next one. I loved being a part of that world, and I wanted to keep being a part of that world. Now, I think the quality of that series went down in the later books, and honestly, by the end, I had completely lost interest. But the question was what series trapped me from the beginning, and Hunger Games definitely trapped me from the very beginning. Track 3, Sea of Sorrow. Name a song, poem, book, or movie that makes you tear up every time. Girl on the Bridge, a 1999 French film by Patrice Leconte, starring Vanessa Paradis and Daniel Authier. The story of an aging knife thrower in Paris and the beautiful but suicidal young woman he recruits to be his assistant. It's a romance, it's a comedy, it's the most beautiful film I've ever seen, and it's all shot in glorious black and white. I've seen the movie a dozen times, and I have yet to make it through a single time without tearing up. Track number 4, Bleed the Freak. Name a book or movie that you quote way too much. I don't know that there is a book or movie that I quote way too much. I'm not really a quoter, mostly because I have a terrible memory and I can never remember things that I want to quote. Track 5, I Can't Remember. Name the book or movie or band you always try to tell someone about, but you always forget the name or get it mixed up with something else. Basically every author ever. I had to look up the names of everything I talk about in this video, and I have them written down on a piece of paper in front of me. I can sometimes remember the name of a book or a movie that I want to recommend to somebody, but when I ask who wrote it or who directed it, my mind goes completely blank. Track number 5.5. What am I drinking today? This is actually Van Hout two-step cappuccino, and if we're being completely honest, it's not very good. Track number 6. Name a book, movie, album, band that you love that everyone else hates. I kind of like Prometheus. Track number 7. It Ain't Like That. Name a book, movie, poem, song that everyone always gets wrong when they talk to you about it. For most of my life, I've been telling people that they don't understand the ending to Blade Runner. Spoiler alert, Harrison Ford was a replicant all along. How else could Edward James Olmos have known he was having dreams about unicorns unless Harrison Ford was a replicant? That's why Edward James Olmos leaves the matchstick unicorn outside Harrison Ford's door at the end of the movie. He wants him to realize that he is actually a replicant. But then this year they start showing trailers for the new Blade Runner, where Harrison Ford is an old man and clearly not a replicant. So I guess the moral of the story is, don't always assume you're the one who's right. But actually, I still maintain Harrison Ford was a replicant, and they just retconned the whole thing so they could put him in the sequel. So maybe the moral is, stick to your guns, even when you've been demonstrably proven wrong. Wait, no, that's a terrible moral. That's not the moral. Track 8, Sunshine. Name your feel-good book, album, or movie. Frankenstein, 1931. Starring Colin Clive and Boris Karloff. Not exactly an uplifting story, granted, but it makes me happy to watch it. I'm not sure why, but it's like comfort food for my soul. And when I need a pick-me-up, Frankenstein always does the job. Track 9, Put You Down. Name the book you can't put down or the movie you can't stop watching even though you should. Any B-movie horror. The bloodier the better. I have no idea why I'm addicted to bad horror films, but for whatever reason I cannot stop watching them. Track 10, Confusion. Name the book, movie, or album you just don't get. Ulysses by James Joyce. And I know that not getting it is kind of the point to getting it, but I don't really get that either. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man is one of my favorite books of all time, and was extremely formative to my teenage years, but Ulysses just goes over my head. Track 11, I Know Something About You. Name a book, movie, or album you have an obsessive insider info kind of love with. I'm going to double dip on an earlier answer and bring back Frankenstein. Or rather, all the Universal monster movie classics. I've watched them a million times and I could watch them a million more. I've read every book I could ever find about them. Here's an interesting fact. Although Dr. Frankenstein is frequently pictured as having an assistant named Igor, in the original 1931 Frankenstein film, Dr. Frankenstein's assistant was named Fritz. There was a character named Igor who showed up in the third film, Son of Frankenstein, but his name was actually pronounced Igor, and he wasn't a lab assistant, he was a criminal who escaped the hangman's noose and was using Frankenstein's monster to exact revenge against the people who had him hanged. He may or may not have been a zombie. Track 12, The Real Thing. Name the book, movie, or album that really defines you or changed you in a profound manner. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. That book changed my perspective of what literature can be. It was instrumental in my deciding to become a writer myself. To this day, it's the best book I've ever read, and I would encourage anybody to seek it out for themselves. Love it or hate it, it will change you. Well, those are my 12 questions. Thanks to Joe Compton for coming up with this tag, and JB Taylor for tagging me. Thanks for watching. Love and respect. See you next time.